Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know that I haven't listened to the biggest and the greatest investor in Africa, Alhaji Aliko Dangote. It's actually very difficult for a poor politician like myself to be asked to come and speak again. But you know, it's a different time. And one thing that is common between Alhaji Aliko and myself is that all of the investment that we've all had to clap and do all of the great things this evening are cited in my city. And we're excited that Lagos, even with all the challenges that they had to deal with, having moved 3 locations, now finally settling in to Lagos, we've been able to demonstrate to him what ease of doing business is all about, and we're happy that that infrastructure, it's a testament of what an African and Nigerian can do. So on behalf of the people of Lagos, let's give him another round of applause. Distinguished audience, I'm indeed very excited and happy this evening that you've given me an honor to give a brief remark. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to address this closing remark on the opening day of the 31st Afro-Exim annual meeting at the 3rd African Caribbean Trade Investment Forum. Like I said, we've just witnessed the most compelling and inspiring day of celebration and conversation. We've seen powerful cultural performance here today, and we've seen powerful insight about living and thriving in a world of polycrisis. We have also seen the highlights of a remarkable African and a Caribbean success story in the business world, including from our own very Alhaji Aliko Dangote of the Dangote Group. Alhaji modestly has transcended national boundaries in a way that many Africans have been unable to do. This makes him a pioneering force and a great and a distinguished continental ambassador. Earlier today as well, I had the privilege of watching Alhaji Dangote on the side with some of our Caribbean leaders here, how he was able to stimulate them, how he was able to show them all of the things that he's done, and the discussions focused on ways in which we believe that we can deepen and integrate trade agenda between Africa and the Caribbean. Still earlier today, I had watched Eleni warmly conduct our session on strategies for global Africa and found the issues deliberated on the panel very interesting, thought-provoking, and very engaging. Interestingly, I found their perspective on localizing solutions to Africa problems to resonate deeply with our own views. The importance of African financial and payment system that prioritize our local currencies cannot be overemphasized. I know that this is something Afro-Exim Bank is at the forefront of through the establishment of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPPS. I am also aware of the ongoing advocacy by African multilateral development banks for the reform of a global financial architecture to ensure that Africa has a more prominent seat at the table and a more prominent voice in deciding on the matters that affect us the most. Also worth highlighting is the recent addition of the African Union as a 21st member of the G20 bloc. All of these are signs of progress, but they are certainly not enough, and they should not satisfy us. We must push for and work for a more fundamental reforms and a reordering of a global economic system. In all, we have seen a most exciting day one at the Afro-Exim 2024 annual meeting. Now I stand before you to wrap up the day by speaking on the role of subnationals in driving global African agenda, and I believe lessons from Lagos will help us here. I'm especially excited by the opportunity because the telling and the amplifying the African economic narrative has largely been driven at the sovereign level. Those conversations typically start and stay at that level. Focus on nations and nations' borders. Discussions about African politics, GDP growth, economic influence, migration, security, and so on. They all tend to center around the countries. We have not seen as much effort going into examining the roles and contribution of subnational governments to development of African narratives in the 21st century era. And yet, it is at this level of cities, of states, of counties, and subnational that a lot of the most remarkable reforms and transformational agendas are taking place. And when we focus only on the national level, we miss out on a lot of trends and lessons that could be very useful in helping chart the journey to a future of sustainable prosperity and social economic transformation. Taking Lagos, for example, a unique African story shaped by an interesting mix of advantages and challenges. By the way, for context, I speak with you today as a democratically elected governor of the state, having had the rare opportunity to be in my 5th year of an 8-year journey. Thank you. Lagos State is one of Nigeria's 36 states, and we're responsible for more than over a third of the nation's entire GDP. In fact, we have a GDP that is greater than all but 7 African countries. In the last 5 years, and under my leadership, we have seen almost a 50% growth increase in our GDP in Lagos alone. We also account for about half of the country's total energy demand. We have over 70% of Nigerians' foreign trade inflow into Lagos. And unlike most other subnational governments in Nigeria, over 75% of our revenues are generated internally as opposed to being centrally collected from the national treasury. Lagos happens to be the most populated city, not just in Nigeria, but also in the entire continent of Africa. For context, Lagos is 40 times the size of Bahamas, population-wise. However, Bahamas is 3 times the size of Lagos in terms of land mass. This, of course, makes us densely populated and highly urbanized. In all of the various challenges are huge opportunities, and strategic relevance of Lagos has to the largest country in Africa, Nigeria. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the first question that comes to mind and requires examination is regarding the global African agenda. What is this global African agenda? The global African agenda is about the rightful place of Africa in the 21st century, based on our potential and on our people. It is about seeing ourselves for what we can and should be, taking stock of all our pluses and minuses, and marching forward into the 21st century with the determination to write our own stories ourselves. And I think Aliko has demonstrated that here today, and with all of the great leaders that have come forward, we need to write our stories ourselves. This is rooted in a Pan-African ideal of unity, self-determination, freedom, progress, and a collective prosperity, and it powerfully encapsulated by the African Union Agenda 2063, which prioritizes social and economic development, regional integration, democratic governance, and peace and security are some of the things we need to be doing right. As we therefore look forward to this aspiration, it is clear that sub-sovereign entities like ourselves, where we have the cities, the states, the provinces, the regions, and the municipalities, are instrumental in translating these high-level goals into tangible outcomes. I'm here to tell you how subnational governments are vital in writing the story and advancing the agenda. And I will use the example of Lagos, which I'm of course very familiar with. I will tell you 5 quick stories to illustrate this, and I'll share the stories first. And then I'll tell you what they mean and why they are important to global African agenda. The first is about climate change and environmental issues. It is also about a project called the Eco-Atlantic City in Lagos. And it must know it's a city that is now come out from the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Guinea, which puts us at the mercy of rising sea level and means that without external intervention, some part of the city will have disappeared underwater, and in the decades will not have that part of Lagos again. We have lived with this existential threat for a long time, and then we decided to take our destiny into our hands. Coincidentally, under the leadership of my predecessor, who now happens to be the president of the country, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Lagos championed 2-level ambitious interlinked projects. One, a massive reclamation of the Atlantic Ocean to reduce land lost over the course of the century to the ravaging surge of the ocean. And 2, the construction of what is now known as the Great Wall of Lagos, almost 10-kilometer long stone and concrete barrier to protect the coastline. That project allowed us to create a brand new city, the Eco-Atlantic City, which has since then become a global model for environmentally responsive and climate action city. And that even predates the Paris climate agenda, meaning Lagos was getting something right even before the Paris climate agenda. And so in prioritizing environmental sustainability and energy efficiency, the Eco-Atlantic City has become a model for how African governments can respond to the multifaceted challenges of climate change. The second story is about the Lekki Deep-Sea Port, which commenced commercial operation about a year ago. It's the newest and the most modern port in sub-Saharan Africa, and by extension is the first deep-sea port in Nigeria. Lagos boldly takes about 20% stake in this billion-dollar joint venture project, and we're prominent with international financial bodies to process and to lead this new port. The Lekki Deep-Sea Port is one that is set to bolster Nigeria's trade and create a potential and a competitive edge as positioning what we've all discussed here today, the benefit of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Area Agreement, AFCTFTA. I'm also proud to say that we in Lagos have indeed mastered the art and the science of public-private partnership. Having pioneered this in Lagos, we're now exporting this template to other parts of the country. The third story is about what we call the Lekki Free Trade Zone. Today, this area is one of the fastest growing industrial hubs in Africa. It's home to the largest single train refinery. It's also home to the seaport that I mentioned. The vision of this zone originated more than a decade ago, at a time when ambitious and futuristic ideas like this were not associated in Africa. Today, the zone has inspired several others across Nigeria, and it is transforming not only the Nigerian economy, but that of the West Africa in total. The fourth story is what I leave with you today. It's about a large-scale infrastructural redevelopment that we have in Lagos. I will start with the Lagos-Badagry Express Road, which is a section of a highway that runs through 5 countries. Lagos will take you all the way to Abidjan. The highway is intended to push from Nigeria to Benin, to Togo, to Ghana, and to Abidjan, and to Côte d'Ivoire. But it is such a vital connector of Lagos State to the rest of the region and a critical enabler of regional integration that we, as a state, decided to step up and champion the expansion of and upgraded this road to support our federal government and to nudge them into devoting more resources and attention to this corridor. Today, as I speak, much of the new 10-lane reconstructed highway are now in place, and this includes an alignment for our ongoing citywide Metro Rail project. That's another story. The Metro Rail, known officially as the Lagos Rail Mass Transit, comprises a total of 7 colored coded lines. Upon completion, it has over 300 kilometers of rail connectivity within Lagos. And we have actually completed the first phase of the blue line and the red line. When these 2 rails are fully completed, it will be carrying over 1.2 million passengers per day on the 2 lines alone. The 5th one, which is most interesting to me, is about the power of the young people in driving creativity, innovation, and digital connectivity, all critical pillars for the economic prosperity of Africa. Lagos, as in the last decade, became a globally renowned hub for digital technology and innovation. And this is because of our young people and their energy, their talent, their enthusiasm. I personally believe that subnational governments are much better placed than national government to understand the young people and their ideas so that we can support them to achieve their dreams and aspirations. And as we know, the extent to which the achievements of global African agenda is tied to the young Africans. Africa is the world's youngest continent and will continue to be into the foreseeable future. With a mean age of about 20, it is also clear that Africa will provide the bulk of the labor force required by the entire world in the 21st century. Sociologists are calling it the youth quake. And in October 2023, the New York Times published a viral piece titled, "The World is Becoming More African." Indeed, we have gone from Africa, the hopeless continent, to the world is becoming more African. In just less than 25 years, we are just getting started. We have minted a number of fintech unicorns, like InterSwitch, Paystack, Florida Waves. They are just the best of the known of several technology startups cutting across the sector of our economy, in agriculture, in healthcare, education, and a lot more. This ferment of innovation has not happened by chance, even if it has been led and driven by immensely talented and entrepreneurial young Nigerians. Successive administration in Lagos State have paid very careful and close attention to those ecosystems and worked to ensure an enabling environment through various policies, programs, and incentives for that bracket of our citizens. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Lagos is fast growing into a data center hub, attracting millions of dollars of local and foreign investment in that area. Just a few months ago, the longest fiber optic submarine cable system in the world, known as 2Africa, landed on the shores of Lagos. What this means is that as Africa steps up to become a global source of service export, Lagos is very well positioned to take the lead. We have the talent, we have the infrastructure, and we're putting all the right policies in place. So what do we see from these 5 examples that I've cited to us? They speak of bold and ambitious vision. At subnational level, a state government taking on projects and challenges that are typically associated with national governments and national budgets. They speak of the power of partnership between national and subnational governments, and between public and the private sector. The real power of subnational government lies in understanding the leverage and the synergy, understanding that when you are open to cooperation, there are limits to what you can achieve. Finally, This story speaks of the importance of African solution and African capacity of tackling African problems. They highlight the necessity of self-confidence, on believing in the ideas and the approaches, and of understanding our external help can only function as an add-on or a bonus and can never replace the internal leadership and the direction required to advance the cause of the African continent. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this now takes me to the landmark African Continental Free Trade Agreement, one of the most important African-driven initiatives in our history. His Excellency Mele has spoken about it today. Alhaji Aliko has also spoken about it today. It's a revolution whose idea will seek to unleash the power of the world's largest free trade area in terms of numbers of participating countries. The AFCTA is an idea whose success depends on all of the elements I have previously outlined. We must have modern ports, functional industrial zones, ambitious transnational highways, an endless evolution and unleashing of digital technology, of all of which will enable for an efficient flow of high-level goods and services across our borders. But guess what? The developed nations do not want it to work. They do not want us to trade and create value amongst ourselves. They do not want us to forge this united African trade channel. All of these projects in progress should be seen as fundamental building blocks for an integrated African economy of the 21st century. The pillars upon which African Union's overreaching agenda of 2063 will be constructed. Lagos truly offers an inspiring model of what is possible when Africa thinks big and thinks ahead. In the near future, our ambition is to, in addition to what we have already accomplished, become a strong and a solid link between Africa and the Caribbean, building on long-lasting historic connection and modernizing them into a partnership that is an unstoppable global force. We already have so much in common, and if we synergize properly, there is no limit to how far we can go. And this is where Afro-Exim Bank comes in. An inspiration. They are an enabler. They are a facilitator, and they are a financier. Already, they have established themselves as an excellent facilitator of bridge building Africa and the Caribbean. Let us all applaud the courage and the drive by the current leadership of the bank. You need to double the numbers now. We've given you all the applause. The rain has started falling. You need to double up and be able to double that balance sheet because we need it more than ever before. I therefore commend Afro-Exim Bank for their dedication to transforming the African trade, the investment and the cultural narrative. And in this same vein, I must also acknowledge the excellent enabling work you are doing with CANEX initiative to support Africa's creative and cultural industries. You have also been very supportive of our development agenda for us in Lagos State. We count on you as strategic partner and as friend, and we look forward to forging even deeper partnership in the months and the years ahead. We believe this will be for the benefit of not only our city, of not only our country, but will be for the entire African continent and the whole world at large. We believe that together we can build a purposeful and a sustainable future for us. And we believe in that future, Afro-Exim Bank plays a prominent role. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share these few insights, and I look forward to a continued conversation and collaboration with you. Thank you very much for listening.